This is our favorite, #1 software. Why?
Because it makes us more money. It actually makes us money.
Hi, I'm Sarah Karakayan.
And I'm Annette Grant. And together we are
Thanks for visiting.
We've been hosting for well over a decade, welcomed tens of thousands of guests, and earned thousands of 5-star reviews.
Our portfolio continues to bring in over $1.5 million year over year, and supported not only by the industry's leading brands, but also some of the biggest media outlets.
And we're here to help you with your furnished rental.
Annette and I get asked all the time, if I can only use one piece of tech, ladies. I've got one property, or hey, I'm not making that much money just yet, but I want to start using some sort of piece of software. What should I use? We always ask them first, are you using third-party dynamic pricing software? And if the answer is no, then we say, that's what you got to use.
Yes, and this is not key here. This is not smart pricing from Airbnb. Everybody's like, yeah, I use smart pricing. That is not it. It is third-party dynamic pricing software. And we use, you probably want to know, of course, we use Pricelabs.
Yeah, so if you use Airbnb smart pricing, the algorithm is, of course, going to favor Airbnb and what Airbnb wants, not necessarily what is best for you, your market, your property. So having a third-party software do that is best. And this video, we're going to dig into our top 2 tips to optimize your dynamic pricing software, because people get in there and they get overwhelmed. They see graphs, they see numbers, and all of a sudden they're not numbers people, or it feels complicated.
So we are going to simplify it for you. Just 2 top tips.
Why revenue management matters.
Most of us, almost all of us, are doing this to make money, right? So we've got to pay attention to our revenue management. And this is not bookkeeping, okay? This is managing the revenue, that average daily rate of what we are charging for our properties.
So we wanted to see what the definition, I wish I had glasses right now, I'd push them up against my nose.
I have some, I got them for you. My readers.
Prop master over here. Okay, revenue management is the practice of adjusting your rates based on market demand, guest booking behavior, and other factors to maximize your income. So without a strategy, you're either leaving money on the table or you are risking underpricing your property, which would be not good.
You heard that. Maximizing revenue, maximizing your profits. So let's get into these 2 tips. The booking window is the average amount of days from when the guest books your property to their actual check-in date.
That is their booking window, and you should know what your booking window is. This booking window changes seasonality, guest behavior, events, non-events in your area.
This is not static.
No.
This is always changing.
But you should know it because you are in your third-party dynamic pricing software. And so I would say, like, every couple weeks you should know about what your booking window is. Why? Because then you can proactively adjust your rates or not adjust them instead of reacting too soon to something that you feel is time for you to lower your rates, right? And we're going to get into these tips and how you can look at the average booking window for your market and know what to do with that information. Before we get into the tip, we were actually just discussing, we wanted to share with you example booking window lengths.
For instance, here, we're Columbus, Ohio, downtown. Sometimes ours booking window is so short as 3 days. It can go to 14 days, 21 days. We know other property owners, again, across the country, different size properties. It might be 21 days. It might be 6 weeks. It might even be 6 months to a year. So that's why it's really important for you to understand your booking window for your property.
So here's the thing with dynamic pricing software. People think once they subscribe to it, they're like, well, I'm paying for it, so it should do my pricing for me. And that is not true. Even in fancy, like, big hotels or giant property management companies managing hundreds of short-term rentals, like vacation rentals.
They have full-time staff that specifically does revenue management.
And they use software, right? So it is an art and a science is the best way to describe it. Like, let Pricelabs do its job and read data. So we also see people, and Pricelabs said this too, don't over-customize your Pricelabs account, okay? Let Pricelabs do what it wants to do. If you want to change something or customize something, have a reason for it. So just a real quick TFE pro tip there. But right now we want to talk about the booking window. So now that, once you can figure out what your booking window is, so that time between when a guest books and the date when they check in, we recommend going into your Pricelabs at least weekly.
And by the way, the booking window, your dynamic pricing software will give you this. You don't have to do this manually on your own.
No, you'll figure it out. Go in there weekly and find dates that aren't booked yet, okay? And so, and if they fall outside of your booking window and you're wondering what you should do with your pricing, we have some very specific numbers for you to follow as guidelines on whether you should change your pricing at that point in time or not.
Right. Is it time to adjust the rates, the average daily rate?
Right, because again, we see people panic, they change their rate, and wait till you hear these tips that they work for us year after year after year. These are like,
tried and true.
You're welcome. Okay, so if your market is under 35% occupied, so under 35% occupied, do not lower your rate. You're leaving money on the table as demand isn't strong enough yet. So we don't even know, like the demand isn't strong. The demand will get there. So don't lower your rate because you're just gonna be leaving money on the table. Does that make sense? Okay, if your market is over 70% occupied, again, we do not recommend lowering your rates because your demand is high enough and you'll likely get booked at that rate. Okay, we got that? So if it's under 35% occupied, don't touch it. If it's over 70% occupied, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Highlight the sweet spot here of 35 to 70% market occupancy range is where adjusting a rate could make sense. Check the neighborhood data section, at least in our Pricelabs. If you use a different dynamic pricing software, it will have something similar to this, but in Pricelabs, it has a neighborhood data. We are in this tab all the time because it tells us what are our competitors getting when it comes to getting booked. So look at that section in Pricelabs to see market occupancy and also see what rates Pricelabs might suggest that you try out. TFE pro tip.
A proactive rate strategy, not reactive. You see so many hosts just being reactive with the rates. This proactive rate strategy based on that booking window is going to help you keep your rates consistent and avoid those reactive price drops, which is going to mean that you're losing money.
Okay, so you're like, what are you talking about? When it is at the property level, each property, you can set a minimum price. You can set your base price. We'll have to do a whole video on base price, not today. And then there's also the maximum price. And what we want you to do is not put anything in that maximum price area. Don't limit your property.
Yeah, leave it blank.
We'll tell you why.
No number. Removing the maximum will help you capture peak demand during those super high impact events. What could some of them be? Think concerts, sporting events, holidays. Maybe there's a weather event that happens. Let's just go through some of them. Taylor Swift comes to town. The Super Bowl comes to town. Let's say there's a snowstorm and no one can get out and they need somewhere to stay. These are those events that you do not want to have a maximum set because that demand can go through the roof and you do not want to leave money on the table.
I think this can happen. I'm trying to think of an event where all of a sudden a team wins and you don't even have time to prepare, but your town is hosting the game. Things like that too.
Right. For instance, the college football playoffs just happened. That's something recent. And it's those are basically they didn't know until they announced the teams and then where the home games were. Maybe it's where the home games are going to be. Maybe it's the World Series and there's 3 games and there's 4 games and 5 games. There's stuff like that you don't want to be caught asleep at the wheel. You don't want to have that maximum when maybe a team hasn't been in one of these games for, 20 years, 10 years, 30 years. You want to make sure that you're capturing as much of that market demand as possible.
Okay, so another reason why is market-driven pricing. So by putting in a maximum, you're essentially overriding Pricelabs' ability to price your property at what a guest is willing to pay at that peak time. And you don't want to do that. It kind of goes back to the previous tip about market drivers, whether it's an event or what have you. But setting that maximum, we don't know how high it can. There are times when your property could peak to a price that you've never seen before. And if you set this maximum in place, you're not going to be one of the people that finds out how much a guest is actually willing to pay for your property. And so we want Pricelabs to do what it's meant to do, which is see what the market is doing and have it price your property appropriately.
This will take some mindset work. We see it over and over again with hosts.
Oh, you're doing it right now. I can already tell.
You have your preconceived idea of what the value of your property is, and that's based on what you think or your feelings of how high the price could go for your property, what the value is, and it's not actually based on data. And that's what you need to let Pricelabs do. Because when you are putting your own perception of the value of your property, we see hosts time and time again underestimating the value of what they're bringing to the guest. And this isn't just at the maximum price. This is at the base price. This is at pretty much all pricing. This is where we see hosts under-earning because they are undervaluing their property. And you have got to allow yourself to remove that maximum price so you can see what you're capable of, what that surge pricing, what your property can be valued at. And we can share, Sarah and I, we are still hitting record numbers. We just hit some of our record numbers this past football season. In Ohio, our football team won the national championship, and we saw rates we could never, ever have imagined, but it's because we had that maximum rate removed. So do yourself a favor, remove it. Your value of your property is very different than the guest that wants to stay there and their big why, which might be a once-in-a-lifetime event that's coming to your town.
I'm going to piggyback off of Annette's last tip here in terms of removing that maximum pricing, but doing that and then allowing Pricelabs to do its job is just going to allow you to build confidence about your pricing and about your property because you are allowing it to test and allowing it to see what your property is capable of, and that is going to make you a stronger revenue manager for years to come. So removing this maximum will boost your confidence. We can guarantee it, okay? We've seen it happen not just with our own properties, but obviously we coach so many hosts inside of our coaching program.
And we hear
and
it time and time again, like, oh my gosh, I just got the highest rate I've ever gotten by removing the maximum rate. They were basically handcuffing their earnings by having that on there.
Yeah, and here's the thing, as long as you have a cadence of going into Pricelabs, if you get to your booking window and the price and occupancy is creeping to that, remember we talked about 75% rate, if it's still in that period of between 35 and 70, that is the time when you can really think about it. Like, okay, maybe I need to come in here and see what the rest of the market is doing and adjust my pricing accordingly. That is why we also say don't just set it and forget it. Allow Pricelabs to do its job. Allow it to test, but then go in there and trust but verify and be a part of that process. It's going to make you a stronger revenue manager. Okay, we're going to recap now this video.
Again, Airbnb smart pricing is not dynamic pricing, a third-party dynamic pricing. That is what we want you to use.
And we would suggest to get a third-party dynamic pricing software as your first piece of paid software if you're wondering what to get first.
Absolutely. And
it'll make you your money back in no time.
And learn it. Ask questions. Yeah. Pricelabs is amazing customer service. They do workshops. Like, get in there and learn it. This isn't one thing you're going to flip a switch and everything's going to be taken care of for you. We do have to be honest in this, but if you want to make more money, this is what you need.
Okay. Now, we also advised you to understand your booking window. So we only give you 2 tips in this video because we want you to take these 2 tips and run with it. So understand your booking window. And remember, we did give you some boundaries here. If your market is under 35% occupied, which Pricelabs will tell you, don't lower your rate, okay? You're leaving money on the table. The demand is not yet strong enough, okay? We don't even know what it'll do, so just don't touch it. If your market is over 75% occupied, do not recommend lowering your rates, right? Because you'll likely get booked at your original rate. So it's that sweet spot of 35 to 70%. That's where you want to check your neighborhood data, see what's going on, and you might want to massage the rate at that point.
And then tip 2, just remove that maximum rate.
Yeah,
leave it blank.
See what your property is capable of. It'd be so good. All right, if you are excited to get into your pricing and to try Pricelabs, we do have a link for you in our show notes. They will give you a 30-day free trial if you use our link. So go check it out. And then let's get the conversation going in the comments. What events are coming to your area that are going to drive demand? Let us know.
Yeah, what's your maximum rate you're getting in your area? And then we've told you about how you're leaving money on the table. We have a whole other video of other pricing, other things besides pricing that are costing you. So make sure to check it out.
With that, I am Sarah Karakayan.
I'm Annette Grant, and together we are.
Thanks for visiting. Talk to you next time.